Frasier, 1993 to 2004, was more than just a sitcom. It was a cultural phenomenon known for its sharp wit, refined humor, and unforgettable characters. Audiences fell in love with Dr. Frasier Crane and the eccentric world around him. But behind the laughter and clever dialogue, some of the show's beloved actors faced private battles that ended in tragedy. Over the years, several cast members and notable guest stars have sadly passed away. Some after long illnesses, others suddenly and unexpectedly. In this video, we take a closer look at the lives and untimely deaths of the Frasier actors who are gone, and the touching, sometimes heartbreaking stories they left behind. John Mahoney was born on June 20th, 1940, and joined Frasier in 1993 at the age of 53, portraying Martin Crane, the grumpy blue-collar father whose recliner and down-to-earth cynicism stood in stark contrast to his son's elite pretensions. Martin was beloved for his dry wit, tender gruffness, and the emotional grounding he brought to the series. However, behind Mahoney's warm screen presence lay a life marked by isolation, hidden pain, and emotional scars that went largely unspoken. Born into a miserable, hostile home in war-ravaged England, Mahoney's childhood was poisoned by an explosive father and a cold, emotionally distant mother. He later admitted he felt invisible for most of his upbringing, using humor as a survival tool. After immigrating to the US, he spent years drifting, teaching, editing, even considering the priesthood, before taking a leap into acting in his late 30s. He struggled with imposter syndrome and crushing depression, admitting to years of therapy. Although Frasier catapulted him into stardom, Mahoney remained a loner, plagued by trust issues. He never married, revealing in a rare interview that his parents' toxic marriage left him terrified of closeness. There were persistent but quiet whispers in the industry about his sexuality, which Mahoney never publicly acknowledged. A secrecy born not of shame, but deep-seated fear of emotional vulnerability. He hated the Hollywood scene, was known to avoid parties, and battled chronic pain in silence. His darkest professional moment came during a Broadway flop in the mid-2000s, where critics savaged his performance, prompting him to retreat from the public eye. He passed away on February 4, 2018, in a hospice in Chicago from complications of throat cancer that had spread to his brain and lungs. He was 77. Despite his fame, Mahoney lived modestly, favoring theater over money. At the time of his death, his estate was valued at approximately $16 million, comprised of his TV royalties, stage earnings, and personal investments. Alice Platton was born on August 28, 1947, and portrayed Bonnie in Frasier in 1999 at age 52. Her character was a frenetic, oddball presence, charmingly neurotic and awkward, lingering in just 2 episodes but leaving an impression with her idiosyncratic energy. Bonnie's scenes were a burst of strange delight in the polished universe of Frasier Crane. Behind that whimsical charm, however, Platton's life was no sitcom. Born into a deeply dysfunctional household in New York, she was plagued by health problems from childhood. Diagnosed with juvenile diabetes early, Alice was often mocked by classmates for her frail appearance and erratic behavior, concealing her pain behind a facade of theatricality. Her career shimmered but never soared. Broadway roles came and went, and voice work paid the bills. But she never achieved the on-camera fame she desperately craved. Her biggest career blow came in the mid-1980s, when she was abruptly replaced in a major animated project after clashing with the director, a firing that devastated her emotionally and financially. Rumors swirled of her being difficult, a whisper that followed her through auditions. Her marriage to Joshua White, founder of the psychedelic Joshua Light Show, was more of a codependent alliance than a romantic haven. He struggled with addiction, and their home life was reportedly turbulent. In her final years, Alice was battling not only pancreatic cancer and worsening diabetes, but also the emotional wounds of a lifetime of obscurity. She died on June 25, 2011, at age 63, from heart failure complicated by her chronic illnesses in New York City. Her modest estate, valued between $1 and $2 million, was mostly comprised of residuals and modest royalties. Though widely respected in theatrical circles, Alice died quietly, overshadowed by flashier names. Another ghost of talent swallowed by the cruel churn of showbiz. Conrad Janice was born on February 11, 1928, and appeared on Frasier in 1997 at age 69, playing Albert, a minor character that passed under most viewers' radar. But his cameo belied a tumultuous career stretching over half a century, riddled with missed chances, scandal, and personal eccentricities. Born into New York's elite art world, his father was a high-profile art dealer. Janice rejected the privilege he inherited, diving headlong into the messy, unpredictable world of jazz and theater. His early promise as a character actor in the 1940s never reached the heights he had hoped. Though he gained popularity as Fred McConnell in Mork and Mindy, his career was haunted by poor decisions and bad timing. In the 1950s, Janice was quietly blacklisted after signing a petition supporting several left-leaning artists, drawing FBI attention and killing studio interest. The 1970s brought darker struggles. A failed comeback on Broadway was marred by rumors of on-set drunkenness and temper tantrums. Several co-stars described him as difficult, egotistical, and prone to rambling tirades when challenged. He entered rehab in 1979 following a public outburst during a live jazz performance where he accused the audience of being corporate zombies. His personal life was no less chaotic. Married 3 times, he fathered 2 children, both of whom became estranged from him in the 1980s. One son later claimed in a memoir that Janice was emotionally manipulative and borderline narcissistic, always prioritizing his ego over family. Behind the scenes, Janice was obsessed with youth, frequently dating much younger women and undergoing cosmetic procedures well into his 70s, which many whispered were responsible for a noticeable shift in his demeanor. His biggest heartbreak came when his long-planned jazz documentary project collapsed due to mismanagement and lawsuits over unpaid crew, costing him nearly $500,000 and pushing him into semi-retirement. He died on March 1, 2022, in Los Angeles at 94. His cause of death undisclosed but believed to be linked to complications from age-related decline and possible dementia. His estate was worth an estimated $2 million at the time of his death, including royalties, vintage instruments, art collections, and real estate. Phil Donahue, born December 21, 1935, stepped into Frasier in 1999 as Larry at 64, infusing his character with the same commanding, silver-haired confidence he wielded on daytime television. Larry was smooth, self-assured, slightly pompous, a reflection of Donahue's own media-crafted image. But while Larry was lovable, the man behind the mic carried a legacy far more polarizing. Donahue had redefined the talk show format, but behind the scenes he was known to be notoriously controlling, with a reputation for browbeating producers and manipulating narratives to suit his personal worldview. Born into a working-class Catholic family in Cleveland, Donahue's childhood was marred by an emotionally distant father and a devoutly religious mother who disapproved of his secular ambitions. His personal life mirrored the tension. His marriage to actress Marlo Thomas was glamorized in the press, but insiders whispered of cold silences and competing egos. Their childless union became a quiet point of sadness and speculation. Professionally, Donahue's most devastating career blow came in 2003 when MSNBC axed his show abruptly, citing his anti-Iraq war views, an act he saw as censorship, but critics argued stemmed more from plummeting ratings and internal conflict. This public fall from grace haunted his final years. Despite the professional setbacks, Donahue remained immensely wealthy, owning properties in Westport, Connecticut, and Manhattan. He died on August 18, 2024, at age 88 in New York City, following a prolonged illness. His estate, estimated at $125 million, included book royalties, real estate holdings, and media investments. Though celebrated as a liberal icon, Donahue's legacy remains complicated. A brilliant communicator whose sharp tongue and stubborn ideology isolated him from the very industry he helped shape. Rosemary Murphy was born on January 13, 1925, and appeared in Frasier in 1997 as Carol Larkin at the age of 72. Delivering a brief but impactful performance, that radiated elegance and understated emotion. Her character, a dignified older woman with a sharp wit and quiet strength, mirrored Murphy's own presence, a product of classical stage training and a lifetime of restrained intensity. However, Murphy's off-screen life was marked by deep-seated sorrow and isolation. Born in Munich during the rise of Nazism, she spent her earliest years under the shadow of political turmoil. Her American parents fled Germany under unclear and suspicious circumstances. Whispers of collaboration or black market dealings surrounded the family, though Rosemary never spoke publicly about it. In Hollywood, she was respected, but never embraced by the mainstream. After her Emmy win for Eleanor and Franklin, she declined multiple big-budget projects, calling them cheapened art, which alienated her from studio executives. She was rumored to have been blacklisted in the 70s, not for political leanings, but for her refusal to conform to the studio system's expectations of women. She refused plastic surgery, wouldn't feign relationships for publicity, and publicly criticized casting couch culture before the Nasser Me Too era existed. Murphy never married and was the subject of quiet speculation about long-term relationships with both men and women in the industry. A 1972 letter leaked after her death referenced an intense, forbidden love that ended in betrayal and years of therapy. She lived alone in a cramped New York apartment surrounded by cats and thousands of books, declining interviews and rarely seen at industry events. She died on July 5, 2014, in New York City from esophageal cancer at age 89. Her estate, consisting of royalties, vintage playbills, and a rent-controlled apartment, was valued at under $1 million. She left her journals to a university archive, revealing a life filled with unfulfilled dreams, private heartbreaks, and a deep resentment for the industry that she believed never truly saw her. Christopher Durang was born on January 2, 1949, and played Rudy in Frasier in 1996 at age 47. A role so brief yet disorienting, it left a strange taste in viewers' mouths. Rudy wasn't just quirky, he was borderline unhinged, which made sense once you peeled back the layers of Durang's real-life genius and torment. Born to a Catholic mother with a prescription pill addiction and a deeply closeted father, Durang's childhood was a tangle of shame, repression, and unspoken truths. His early years were marked by social isolation and untreated anxiety that bled into his writing. Though he gained fame for his offbeat, award-winning plays, he was also repeatedly accused of creating a toxic rehearsal space where actors felt humiliated or emotionally manipulated, something few dared mention publicly. There were whispers in the off-Broadway world of him throwing scripts at cast members and collapsing into fits of self-loathing during table reads. His biggest professional failure was the Broadway flop Sex and Longing in 1996, which was publicly shredded by critics and left him in a spiral of depression and professional doubt. While Durang never faced major public scandal, his biting satire often masked private despair and emotional volatility. He lived openly with his husband, John Augustin, but friends privately shared concerns about Durang's worsening memory and paranoia in his later years. He withdrew almost entirely from public life in the 2010s. Diagnosed with logopenic primary progressive aphasia, he spent his final years in Pipersville, Pennsylvania, losing his ability to write, speak, and recognize loved ones. He died on April 2, 2024, at the age of 75. At the time of his death, his assets were modest, an estimated $3 to $5 million from royalties, investments, and savings. What remains is a legacy of brilliance laced with melancholy, a man celebrated for exposing the absurdities of society while privately drowning in them. Rene Oberon was born on June 1, 1940, and portrayed Dr. William Tewksbury in Frasier in 2001 at the age of 61. On screen, Dr. Tewksbury was a revered psychiatrist and Frasier Crane's intellectual equal, embodying grace, experience, and subtle authority. But off-screen, Rene's life was layered with a complexity that few in Hollywood ever suspected. Born into aristocracy, his mother was a descendant of European nobility, and his father a Cold War-era journalist, Rene spent his early childhood fleeing post-war Europe, shuffled between elite schools and emotional neglect. Though he came of age in privilege, he battled feelings of alienation and secrecy, hiding behind theatrical personas to mask a lifelong fear of inadequacy. His career, though extensive, was scarred by bitter professional rifts. While celebrated on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, insiders spoke of Auberjonois as controlling and confrontational, often refusing to take direction unless he approved of the writer's intent. In 1985, a public falling out with a Broadway director over casting decisions led to a quiet blackballing in New York theater circles. Despite this, he was a constant figure at conventions, sometimes driven more by financial need than fan devotion. His personal life was far from idyllic. His marriage to Judith Mahoney, though long-lasting on paper, was reportedly strained by years of emotional distance, with rumors of a quiet separation circulating by the early 2000s. One of his children allegedly became estranged after airing grievances about Rene's cold parenting style in a blog post that was swiftly deleted, yet not before it was archived by dedicated Trek fans. In his later years, Rene was plagued by illness and reclusion. He died on December 8, 2019, in Los Angeles, of metastatic lung cancer, at age 79. At the time of his death, his estate was valued at around $5 million, including a modest home, convention earnings, and royalties from decades of television. Piper Laurie was born Rosetta Jacobs on January 22, 1932, and appeared in Frasier in 1994 as Mary Ann when she was 62. Her character was elegant, mysterious, and guarded, traits that Laurie brought effortlessly from her tumultuous personal history. Mary Ann was written as a woman of secrets, and Laurie's off-screen life mirrored that complexity. As a child, Piper was sent to a sanitarium not for illness, but because her parents believed she was too emotionally difficult to handle. She later revealed deep emotional scars from a youth filled with neglect, secrecy, and forced silence. Behind her poised persona, she struggled to shake off a past where her emotions were constantly invalidated. Despite early promise, Laurie's Hollywood career nearly derailed after a humiliating stint under a restrictive studio contract, where she was often cast as decorative arm candy. Her 15-year self-imposed exile from Hollywood after The Hustler was both a rebellion and a breakdown. Her most devastating failure came in the form of industry blackballing after she turned down powerful men in the 60s, including, as rumors suggest, a major studio executive who retaliated by ensuring she wouldn't work again for over a decade. She returned older, stronger, and darker, but her trust in Hollywood never recovered. Her love life was stormy. She had a volatile relationship with writer Joseph Morgenstern, whom she divorced after one child and years of emotional strain. She later admitted to numbing herself with alcohol during long, depressive spells. In her final years, she suffered from a prolonged illness kept secret from the public. Piper Laurie died on October 14, 2023, in Los Angeles, at the age of 91, from complications related to this illness. At the time of her death, her estate was valued between $5 to $10 million, including royalties from her film and television work, a modest property in California, and an art collection she never displayed publicly. Her legacy, like her life, remains enigmatic, respected, but haunted by what might have been. Joda Winter, born Juanita Maria Johanna Dausat on March 5, 1921, appeared in Frasier in 1994 at the age of 73, playing Mrs. Greenway, a poised, refined woman who brought a withering sophistication to the screen in just a few minutes of presence. Her character embodied a brittle, old-world charm that barely masked a sharp edge, eerily reminiscent of the persona she projected off-screen. Raised in Sacramento, Jo came from a conservative Catholic household marked by emotional rigidity and suffocating expectations. As a young girl, she struggled to assert herself in a family where women were expected to marry, not speak up. Her escape came through performance, but her career began late, first overshadowed by her role as a military wife, shuttled across continents during her husband's Navy postings. It wasn't until her 40s that she pursued acting seriously, and even then, she faced brutal rejections for being too old, too stately, too hard to cast. She resented being typecast as society matrons or cold women, and often clashed with casting directors, once storming off a set over the way a female character was written. Her most infamous moment came during a stage tour of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, when she publicly accused a co-star of undermining her performance, an incident that quietly got her blackballed from several theater circles. Off camera, her marriage was turbulent. Friends said her husband was emotionally distant, and she confided in letters that she felt like a prop in someone else's life. She never had children, something she both regretted and resented being judged for. Though publicly gracious and articulate, she battled isolation in her final years, appearing rarely and growing disillusioned with the industry's obsession with youth. She died quietly on January 17, 2016, in Los Angeles at age 94, her cause of death never disclosed. Her estate was modest, under $1 million, consisting mostly of a pension, her small home, and residuals from scattered TV appearances. There was no big funeral, no retrospective. Mako, born Makoto Iwamatsu on December 10, 1933, portrayed Sam Tanaka in Frasier in 1994 at the age of 61. His character was piercingly efficient, a stark contrast to Frasier's neurotic verbosity, and served as a chilling reminder that confidence doesn't always come with noise. The role was small, yet unmistakably Mako, sharp-eyed, reserved, and unnervingly intense. Off-screen, Mako's life was a contradictory blend of artistic triumph and internal turmoil. Born in war-torn Japan and immigrating to the U.S. alone as a teenager, he endured rampant racism, hunger, and homelessness before breaking into acting. Though hailed as a pioneer, his career was marred by systemic typecasting and racial politics. He fought fiercely for Asian American representation, founding East-West Players, but his passion for justice often turned abrasive. He once stormed out of a production meeting after producers insisted he play a stereotype, and he publicly criticized major studios for their whitewashed casting, earning him a reputation as difficult. Privately, he battled demons of identity, often distancing himself from other Asian American actors whom he accused of pandering. His marriage to actress Shizuko Hoshi was strained by long separations and creative disagreements. And though they never divorced, they were living apart in his final years. Diagnosed with esophageal cancer, Mako refused to slow down, continuing to work despite intense pain. He passed away on July 21, 2006, in Somas, California, at 72. His net worth at the time was estimated between $3 to $5 million, including royalties from Samurai Jack and Avatar: The Last Airbender. Yet even in death, his legacy remains conflicted, both as a trailblazer and a man never fully at peace with the world he tried so hard to change. William Morgan Shepard was born on August 24, 1932, and appeared in Frasier in 1995 as Mr. Drake at the age of 63. His role in the club was brief but unforgettable. A paragon of elitist arrogance, Mr. Drake was the gatekeeper of the exclusive gentlemen's club that Frasier and Niles longed to join, exposing the brothers' fragile egos and obsessive need for status. Off-screen, Shepard exuded that same theatrical presence, shaped by decades on the British stage. But behind the grandeur was a man hardened by a cold, working-class London upbringing, where his love of acting was ridiculed as effeminate. Early in his career, he was blacklisted from a prominent Shakespeare company after accusing a director of favoritism, a scandal quietly buried. Though beloved in the sci-fi world, insiders describe Shepard as aloof, prideful, and difficult to direct. His biggest career disappointment came in the late 1990s when a lucrative recurring role in Star Trek. Voyager was canceled after clashes with producers, an unspoken blemish on his resume. Personally, his relationship with his son, actor Mark Shepard, was riddled with tension and professional competition. They often worked together, but sources close to the family described their bond as more performance than paternal. Shepard passed away on January 6, 2019, in Los Angeles at age 86. The cause of death was never made public, stirring quiet speculation. His estate, valued at an estimated $1 to $3 million, consisted of modest real estate and royalties from decades of genre work. Though respected, his death went largely unremarked in mainstream press, an eerie silence for a man who once commanded stages and starships alike. Lyndon Chili was born on March 22, 1933, and played the Dean of Admissions in Frasier in 2002 at age 69. Though the role was brief, it left a mark with its composed authority, something Chili brought naturally, having long been typecast as the stoic executive or emotionally detached intellectual. His character's cold demeanor clashed with Frasier's inflated ego, offering a brief yet biting commentary on academic elitism that resonated with fans who saw through his restrained performance to the subtle satire beneath. Chili's real-life persona was similarly layered, but hidden beneath decades of polite distance. His childhood in Missouri was marred by a bitterly silent home, where emotional repression was the norm and early passions for performance were dismissed as frivolous. Despite earning a respectable career in television, Lyndon's rise was not without bitterness. He was cut from projects without notice and repeatedly passed over for leading roles due to being too cold, according to casting notes. Whispers in the industry claimed Chili could be passive-aggressive and deeply difficult behind the scenes, refusing to take direction without resistance and once threatening to walk off a set over script rewrites. Personally, his life was tumultuous. 3 failed marriages, children who rarely visited, and a string of isolated years in Topanga Canyon. Friends described him as brilliant but emotionally unreachable. On May 15, 2013, he died after falling from the roof of his home, alone at the age of 80. His death shocked even those close to him, not just for the accident, but for how unceremoniously it ended a career of quiet consistency. At the time, he had a net worth of about $1 to $2 million, mostly tied to residuals and a modest real estate portfolio. Forgotten by the industry he once supported, his name quietly faded, buried beneath a career of supporting roles and unspoken regrets. Robert Proski, born Robert Joseph Przuchik, on December 13, 1930, graced Frasier in 1996 at age 66. Playing the famously reclusive novelist T.H. Houghton. His portrayal was a haunting blend of brilliance and melancholy, embodying the disillusionment of a genius in self-imposed exile. Much like his character, Proski avoided the glitz of celebrity, preferring the raw intensity of stagecraft over red carpets. But beneath the image of a humble everyman lay a man tormented by artistic insecurity and lifelong imposter syndrome. Raised in a strict Polish Catholic household in Philadelphia, he changed his name to mask his immigrant roots, something he later admitted with regret. Despite critical acclaim, Proski faced repeated rejection from Hollywood elites who viewed him as too ethnic, too real. His most crushing career blow came in the mid-1980s when he lost a key role in Awakenings to Robin Williams after weeks of rehearsals due to a sudden studio rewrite. Privately, Proski battled with chronic depression and survivor's guilt after losing his younger brother to suicide, a wound he rarely spoke of. His marriage was reportedly stable, but those close to him said he struggled to connect emotionally with his children, 2 of whom later described him as warm but unreachable. Proski died on December 8, 2008, in Washington, D.C., at age 77 from complications after heart surgery. His estate was worth an estimated $4 to $6 million, built on steady stage and screen work and some well-placed real estate holdings. A gentle giant on screen, Proski's true life was shaded by loss, rejection, and a tireless pursuit of artistic dignity. Scott Atkinson was born on July 23, 1966 in Pennsylvania, and played Clive, Daphne's long-lost ex-fiancé, in the 1996 Frasier episode, The Two Mrs. Cranes, when he was 30 years old. In just a single episode, Atkinson created one of the most memorable guest roles in the show's history. A clueless yet dashing Brit unwittingly entangled in a farcical lie that spiraled hilariously out of control. His charm, precise comedic instincts, and convincing accent made Clive unforgettable, and the episode became a fan favorite. However, behind the screen presence was a man whose life was far more complicated than his on-screen ease suggested. Atkinson, despite having credits in Wind Talkers, Dexter, and Jag, struggled to break into leading roles and found himself bouncing between auditions and small parts well into his 40s. He attempted to transition to writing and producing, penning several unproduced scripts with his longtime partner, actor and writer Tegan West. Despite flashes of brilliance, the projects were mired in development limbo, with one Netflix deal collapsing in 2016 due to alleged behind-the-scenes conflicts involving Atkinson's temper and erratic behavior. Privately, friends described him as magnetic but deeply troubled. He battled anxiety and substance abuse quietly for years, disappearing for stretches without explanation. Though he projected an air of calm in interviews, he was reportedly plagued by insecurity over his stalled career and the constant comparisons to more successful peers. His relationship with West was described as loving but volatile, with close friends confirming periods of separation and reconciliation, largely tied to Atkinson's personal struggles. By the late 2000s and 10s, he had grown increasingly reclusive, retreating to Palm Springs, where he worked sporadically on scripts while avoiding the industry altogether. His sudden death on February 26, 2021, at age 54, shocked those who knew him. Though the cause was never officially released, several sources with knowledge of the situation cited a possible drug-related incident. No funeral was held publicly, and his estate, largely consisting of minor royalties and a shared property, was estimated to be under $1 million. Lincoln Kilpatrick was born on February 12, 1931, and took the role of Artie Walsh in Frasier in 1994 at age 63, bringing warmth and unspoken gravitas to Martin Crane's old police partner. On screen, Artie embodied loyalty and the echoes of a time when camaraderie was survival. But Lincoln's own journey was far from easy. As one of the first black actors to break into mainstream American theater, he faced open racism, institutional resistance, and was frequently relegated to roles far beneath his skill. Born in segregated Missouri, Lincoln grew up in poverty, surrounded by systemic barriers and casual violence. His early attempts to enter classical theater were rebuffed. One director reportedly told him, "We don't do Shakespeare in your tone." He eventually forced his way into legitimacy by sheer will, becoming the first black member of the Lincoln Center Repertory Company. But the scars ran deep. He battled chronic anger and resentment at the limitations imposed on him by an industry that applauded his efforts in private while shutting him out of the spotlight. Though he co-founded a theater school to mentor young actors of color, Kilpatrick's advocacy work came at a cost. He was seen as a troublemaker by some Hollywood elites. His most devastating blow came when a high-profile film deal in the 80s collapsed after producers refused to cast a black lead opposite a white romantic interest. Kilpatrick walked away in protest, losing a lucrative contract. His personal life was steady but not without shadows. He remained married for 47 years, but insiders hinted at periods of distance, especially when his workaholism took over. His health declined sharply in the early 2000s, though he kept it quiet. He died on May 18, 2004, in Los Angeles, from complications of lung cancer at age 73. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated between $1 and $2 million, earned from steady but never headline-grabbing roles. Much of it went to fund scholarships and theater programs, a final act of quiet resistance in an industry that never fully embraced him. Thank you for watching as we reflected on the lives and legacies of the actors from Frasier who are no longer with us. Their humor, charm, and unforgettable performances brought joy to millions and helped shape the show into a classic. While their journeys ended far too soon, their impact lives on through every scene, every laugh, and every memory they've left behind. As we honor their lives, we're reminded of how deeply television can touch our hearts. Join us next time as we look back at more stars who left us too soon, but whose stories continue to shine.